You want to find a place that's conducive to your thoughts. Now, I go to a park, and sometimes I'll have background noise. I'm used to that. I come from a family of 9, so I've got 8 brothers and sisters, and there was always noise. So this is kind of comforting and familiar to me, and it just allows me to sink into my own zone. So you have to find your own place. The next thing to do is to sit and pause. Just take your time. There is something churning in you that the environment that you're in will allow to come forth. So it could be just one thought, one word, and when you get that thought, then you place it on the paper. And when I started off in this particular little flow, I started with the word silence, which is kind of contra to what you hear going on in the background. But from silence, I wrote down wind for some reason. That was the next associative thing in my mind. And when you do these, and when you associate from one to the next, you don't take time between it. You try to visualize silence. Okay? You try to visualize some sort of a feeling or a word or anything else that comes to you from that. Write it down next. Don't take a lot of time with it. Just kind of do this in a quick association. So when I went to wind, I went to pressure, and then I went to presence and time and so forth. So you're going to find your own particular flow and words that make sense to you. And this is how we relate words. We also relate our memories. And you can also do phrases, complete phrases. You can do, the tree was leaning to the side. You can write that down, circle it, and draw a line to the next item. And the reason that we do circling and we do drawing lines to the next item is so that it invokes another part of our mind that's the creative drawing side. It's because you have to use language, and then you have to use art to help bring that out in a nice flow. Okay, so the next stage is looking over what you've written. And as you look, you'll automatically start associating some of the things. They'll just leap out. And when they do, you just start writing them down. Your mind will just start assembling it. And you look at it, and you take your time with it. And there's no rules to it. It's completely okay if it screws up, it looks wrong, it doesn't flow right, or whatever else. It's all part of the process, especially if you're not used to listening to yourself. You'll come up with a bunch of your terms. Like I said, if I started off with time, keyboard was the next thing that I would write. For some reason it's just coming out. Or field. So I'll look at that. Time, field. Empty space. And footprints pressing down. And time's pointed fingers. Tapping the keyboard. So in a very short time I started a little poem, and there's some good things to work with on this. The next stage, of course, is editing, and that I cover in a separate section. But right here, this is where you start forming. This is where you listen to yourself, you listen to your environment, you start assembling. This is how you start learning how to express yourself. And poetry is a great way of doing that. If for nothing else, then getting that feedback loop going of listening to what you're saying inside and then expressing that. A lot of the times we go through life, we may hear an impulse, or feel an impulse, or we may hear a thought or a gut feeling, and we don't do anything with it. So it stays inside, and it doesn't come out to affect anybody. So what your goal is to get used to hearing that, forming it into concrete visuals or words, and then expressing it. And this is particularly one way of expressing it where other people can see it. And that in turn kind of starts a little domino effect where someone else is inspired by what they see. Or not. Either way, you write for yourself.